Brazilian Grand Prix live from Sao Paulo, only on ITV. Your pit reporters are Louise Goodman and Ted Kravitz. Murray Walker isn't with us. This is the first of 5 races that Murray is missing in his farewell season. So alongside Martin Brundle in the commentary box, a special welcome to James Allen.
Well, there's only one place in the world we could be today. The crowd have been in here since 7 o'clock this morning, banging their drums, doing Mexican waves, shouting, you name it. It's colourful, it's noisy, and like the potent cocktail they serve here called caipirinha, it's an assault on all your senses. The crowd's nerves have certainly been tested already. Just before the race, Rubens Barrichello, the race car broke on his formation lap. He had to run back to the pits and made it out just 30 seconds before the pit lane exit closed in the spare car. Great deal of work going on the grid on Rubens's car as we speak. The mechanics will have to clear the grid shortly though. We've got 3 minutes and 40 seconds until we get going with this Brazilian Grand Prix. So, what kind of race is in prospect? Well, the first thing you need to know is that just 1/10 of a second separates 2nd and 6th on the grid. Yes, folks, it's that close. The second thing is that it's Williams and not McLaren who are posing the biggest threat to Ferrari here today. Ralf Schumacher lining up alongside his brother. And just a few moments ago, we saw Ralf and Michael shaking hands on the grid, wishing each other luck. Tremendous amount of brotherly spirit between these two, but they have had their run-ins in the past. I think back to Nürburgring in 1997. Ralf took Michael out at the start into the first corner by mistake. As 3 minutes now until the formation lap, he took him out by mistake, and in fact that probably ended Michael's chances of winning the 97 World Championship. Certainly put him on the back foot and gave the advantage to Villeneuve. Ralf told a very amusing story yesterday when I caught up with him and had a chat. Apparently when they used to kart race against each other, Michael would specialise in getting very close up behind Ralf if he was leading and pulling off his exhaust pipe deliberately just to put him out. So will they put each other out into the first corner? Time will tell, but for sure it will not want that kind of embarrassment. We heard Willy Weber, the manager of both of the two Schumacher brothers, and what a wealthy man and what a perceptive man he certainly is. We heard him say he thought that Michael was the favourite today. That's certainly the way that most of us here in Sao Paulo at Interlagos in the paddock feel. This race should be Michael's unless he has some kind of problem, but it really is very, very close indeed, and you can see on the grid just how close it was in qualifying between P2 and P6 in particular. But look, the two Jordans are very close as well, and then we have the Saubers going very strongly as well in the top 10. Juan Montoya worth watching out for. We heard Mark Blundell in the build-up to the race saying he thought that Williams might try 2 stops with Montoya. And, well, that would certainly be worth watching. It is possible to pass cars. Look at the sweat on Rubens Barrichello's face. He really, really will be pumped up, and he'll be ready for this, definitely. It'll certainly give him a charge. Terribly disappointed he was yesterday to qualify a lowly 6th place. Had terrible understeer on that Ferrari, whereas Michael Schumacher sailed serenely on. But after grabbing his 7th consecutive pole position yesterday, Michael said, quote, "This winning streak must end soon." Well, it's pretty fatalistic words from Michael. Will it end here today? Well, on paper, Martin, you would have to say only a problem would stop him.
Yes, I thought he was tempting fate also in a press release yesterday, saying, "I'm pleased to have my little brother on the front row. We know each other so well, we won't crash together." And I think that's very much tempting fate. But clearly, every time I go on that grid, it always surprises me just how steep the hill is that they climb up just after the start, and this grid is in a dip, in a bowl, so you're either rolling downhill or rolling backwards if you're nearer the front of the grid, and it is a tricky start, and you do tend to have a lot of problems, and it's impossible for those two brothers to try to choreograph the first corner, especially with Häkkinen just behind them.
It was an excellent grid walk. You got very close to the tension on Rubens Barrichello. What did it feel like down the grid?
Well, it was amazingly tense. I couldn't believe how calm Rubens was, and then having to meet and greet people all at the same time. I mean, this is the day job. Looks like there's a problem down there for the Jaguar crew as well, and we are now just 10 seconds away from the green light, so that will automatically be a penalty for whichever Jaguar that was. I suspect it was Bertie's car, and a problem then already for the mechanics are now off the track. Of course, they're all standing to the side, but I believe they've made an infringement.
I think it was Irvine, actually. It was on the outside lane, and Irvine is the driver of the Jaguar team who's on the outside. But anyway, they go off on their formation lap now into the first corner. the Descida do Sol, and then the Senna-Rast. Everybody safely away from onto the formation lap, I think. Nobody left behind. You can see the mechanics at the top of the screen just clearing the grid. It's an amazing rush of colour. Everyone's sweating and dashing to get back to the pit lanes with all that very heavy pit equipment. It's in the driver's hands now. Only they can decide what happens. The mechanics will have a role to play in the pit stops. We might see 2 from some cars, 1 from others. I'll tell you a little later what my feelings on that are, but everybody going away on the formation lap, Martin.
Yeah, an important lap then to try to bring your temperatures down a bit. They get high sitting just those few seconds on the line, and of course they get even higher when you finally get around. It takes some 45 seconds for the grid to form up when they get round to the start-finish line, and massive temperature there. Clearly there's only air cooling on them, there's no fans whatsoever, so it's an important lap to get those temperatures as low as you can, try to get some heat in the brakes and the tyres, and generally prepare yourself for what is a pretty tricky start. And it all narrows down into a funnel when you get into turn 1, and really this track is so dirty around the outside there, James, it often causes problems, as we know.
I was interested to hear that, very interested to hear from Mika Häkkinen that he thought it was going to rain today. Certainly at the moment, looking out across the racetrack, we've got the city of Sao Paulo, 3rd biggest city in the world, the largest city in South America, bathed in shade. We're in the sunshine here. There are some clouds in the distance, and we're getting word from the pit lane that indeed Eddie Irvine is being investigated by the race stewards. So the mechanic's not leaving the grid quite on time, and Irvine, he didn't really need any more problems, but he's got some.
It's quite a short lap here. We know the pole position was a 1:13.7, so they're round, and they were still hauling all of the equipment off the line, the generators and spare wheels, etc, etc. So a bit touch and go here for the mechanics to get out of the way.
So they're forming up on the grid. We heard Mark Blundell talking about the uphill start, and you yourself were saying, Martin, how you get a bit of an idea of the gradient, but the TV pictures don't really convey it, and particularly the final corner up to the start finish, a tremendous hill. But everybody forming up on the grid now, and Michael Schumacher and his brother Ralph have been sitting there for a good half a minute now. The temperature's rising all the time. You know the drill, folks. 5 lights go on, then 5 lights go off, and then we'll be rocking and rolling in Sao Paulo. Ready? Ready, ready, go! Great start by Schumacher. Häkkinen stalled. Everyone goes around the back of him, and Häkkinen has stalled from P3. Schumacher leads into the first corner. Great start by Montoya as well, and Ralph and David Coulthard too. So those front 5, and Häkkinen still on the grid.
Safety car, they'll have to put the safety car out, I believe, unless they can move that very, very quickly. They will put the safety car on. That is a walled part of the track. There's nowhere that you can get that car off easily. And as you see, Montoya up to 2nd, and Coulthard, a flying start, truly is 4th. Ralph Schumacher fallen off the front row back down to 5th. And look, the car is still on the grid. They will have to put the safety car out very, very quickly. They need those double yellows waving. And
safety car is standing by, we're told, but no sign of it yet on the racetrack. What a cracking start, though, by Juan Montoya in the Williams. Ralph Schumacher has dropped down to 5th place, and look at Michael streaking away. David Coulthard looking very racy in 3rd place. Jarno Trulli got away well.
Safety car deployed. Safety car deployed, so James, the problem is the safety car cannot pick up the cars before they come over the start-finish line. There's the board, there's the waved yellows. This is a very, very difficult and dangerous situation as they're hauling up the hill towards the start-finish line, doing some 180, 190 miles an hour. The safety car cannot pick them up until the pit lane exit, and there it is. So they will pass the danger zone before the safety car picks them up, and they better be watching those flags, and they are indeed. All drivers slowing down very sensibly down the pit straight. Very critical situation.
They all have radios. All the teams will be in radio contact with the drivers. You can see how close it would have been. He's right on the racing line, Mika Häkkinen, and I'm very surprised they've taken this long to move it. It's over 2 minutes since he stalled that car, and normally you engage it into neutral and roll it back off the grid, but obviously some kind of problem for Häkkinen with the gearbox. Couldn't get the thing into neutral, so now we've got a period of consolidation here while we just clear this car off the track. It won't be very long before the safety car comes in off the track. In fact, it may be as little as 1 lap, because we want to go racing here in Interlagos. The McLaren now has been pushed off the racetrack, and safety car will be coming straight in, so it's going to be green flag more or less straight away. You can see the lights will go out on the safety car, and we'll be racing again. And watch Montoya, he's going to be right behind the Ferrari. But Ted Kravitz, what can you tell us?
Well, James, I'm actually at the front of the McLaren garage. Mika Hakkinen just having a word with engine boss Mario Ilian as he comes in. I can tell you Ron Dennis and Norbert Haug were watching the same pictures you were watching, and as soon as it happened, they just put their hands to the heavens. They look absolutely gutted.
Thank you, Ted. We're just looking at a replay, Martin.
Brilliant driving from all of the field. He was third on the grid, so brilliant driving from 19 other. There he is waving his arms already. It was probably too late for the start to be aborted, and nobody even touched that McLaren, and that is a miracle. That on the start or at the end of the first lap, that could have been a mother and father of a shunt. The yellow flag is waving. You can see the other side of the blue bridge there, but it was too late. Once that computer procedure started, and is really in the final throes of getting the cars away, it cannot be stopped.
But we're racing again here at Interlagos. Michael Schumacher leading the way as they come up the long hill to cross the start-finish line. And look at Juan Montoya, he's looking very racy indeed. Already trying to charge down the inside of Michael Schumacher. This is what we were promised when Montoya came into Formula One. A feisty, aggressive racer, and we've got it. Montoya leads at Interlagos. Michael Schumacher second, David Coulthard third. Fantastic.
Well, there's a warning shot, isn't there, already for Michael Schumacher. Montoya is well known to be very good and very aggressive in traffic. Oh, and that's Barrichello. That's finished his afternoon off, hasn't it?
And he's hit Ralf Schumacher up the back. Rubens Barrichello trying to be a bit too aggressive into late descent, and what a dramatic start to this Brazilian Grand Prix. Unbelievable incident from start to finish. Rubens' race car, of course, packed up on the formation lap. Take us through it, Martin.
Yeah, well, look, Barrichello steaming in very late behind and just missed his braking point, really. Ralf quite cautious. That's the second time this year that somebody has run into the back of Ralf. We saw it, of course, we saw it with Villeneuve in Melbourne, and it just seems as if Barrichello was unsighted. Ralf there having to watch the Jordan, the rear wing go, so Ralf is out of the race. That's a 1 hour job to fix that at least. And it's spotting with rain, we hear. There's a lot of debris down then at turn 4 already, and Barrichello, what an afternoon
he's having an incredible time. Of course, he'd set the fastest first sector time, not surprisingly. Just before he did that, he really had the bit between his teeth, the local hero. But Montoya is still leading this motor race. Michael Schumacher is second, Coulthard third, Trulli fourth, Frentzen is fifth, Villeneuve, great effort from him at the start up to 6th place. Heidfeld has gone from 10th to 7th. Raikkonen is right behind him, his teammate in the Sauber. Eddie Irvine, who's under investigation for problems at the start, is in 9th place. Alesi has made a great move up into 10th place. And of course, we've lost Ralf Schumacher, we've lost Rubens Barrichello already. So Montoya leading.
And Hakkinen, of course. Hakkinen stalling on the line. He's got 1 point then from the first 3 races. Mika Hakkinen, he cannot take the spare car and restart this car. Ralf has made it back to the pits, but as I said earlier, that's a good 1 hour job to fix that, because the undertray, the rear of the undertray will be broken as well. And Montoya now having Schumacher closing up, and well, what a sensational move that was from Montoya. We all expected him to pull those kind of strokes, but the first chance he got in his Grand Prix career, he sticks one up the inside of Michael Schumacher.
But it's not all over yet, because Michael Schumacher is a pretty feisty character himself, and he's right up the back of Montoya. And you can see again the incident, Barrichello running into the back of Ralf Schumacher.
Now, that was almost inevitable, really, with all of that running back to the pits. As calm as he looked, I'm afraid it is just about impossible to really keep your head straight. And, well, as you said, James, he went through there's a speed trap there, there's a section time there, and he was about half a second faster down to that 4th corner than anybody else. I think Rubens really unsighted and braking way too late. And now look at Schumacher homing in on Montoya, but we know that BMW Williams has easily been the fastest car down the straight all weekend by some 4 to 5 kilometres per hour. So Michael's got his hands full. The man sitting pretty really is Coulthard.
Yeah, Coulthard looking very good at the moment, just keeping a watching brief on the top 2. And as you say, Martin, that BMW engine revving to 18,000 RPM now, the highest revving engine. They're talking about well over 800 horsepower. And BMW in only their 2nd year of Formula One competition after a multi-year break going back to the mid-1980s. What a fantastic package. This is only their 20th Grand Prix start of their 2nd time in Formula One, and they're looking very strong indeed. Now, they're running roughly the same sort of wing angles from what I could see down on the, looking at the pictures on the grid. It's going to be very difficult because that Williams is very aerodynamically efficient in a straight line. The air passes underneath it, over the top of it. They've got some great modifications on the car this weekend which have allowed Montoya and Ralf Schumacher to be so too fast. And Michael Schumacher has a terrifically efficient race car too, but he has not got the straight line speed. How does he pass this mercurial 25-year-old Colombian, the man who came over from America, and absolutely extraordinary performance already. Whatever happens now, there's a good chance of points today for Montoya. It's not just about going for glory. He can really make his mark on Formula One today. Hakkinen out, Rubens out, and his teammate Ralf Schumacher out. So Montoya leading by 0.4 of a second from Michael Schumacher. Coulthard still third, Trulli fourth, Frentzen fifth, Villeneuve sixth, Heidfeld seventh, Raikkonen eighth, Irvine ninth, Alesi 10th.
There's the confirmation of the 10-second stop-and-go penalty for Eddie Irvine, and a big lock-up there into turn 7. It's not a major problem.
He has a lock down the inside, Michael Schumacher, very close. He lost momentum there, Montoya. Sorry to jump in there, Martin, but he did lose a lot of momentum, and Michael's certainly having a good look on this twisty section.
Yeah, he'll never get through there, though, James, never in a month of Sundays, but at least it's showing just how hard Montoya's having to fight to stay ahead. And Michael, too, is giving it plenty, and back-end stepping out. But this is the problem Michael's got. Montoya is faster down the straight, and here we go with a replay of that very, very brave first corner move there. Michael, of course, is up for a championship. He's got more to lose than Montoya, and that was a real racer's move. Fantastic move by Juan Montoya. We saw in America a couple of years ago, he put an incredible move on, well, he put lots of incredible moves on a lot of people, Juan Montoya, to win the IndyCar Championship, and he's done it again to the best driver in Formula One. He said he was going to do this, and he's now leading on lap 6 of this 71-lap Grand Prix as Eddie Irvine comes in to serve his 10-second stop-and-go penalty. That's going to lose him about 32 seconds of race time and drop him way, way down. He was in 9th place. He's going to be about 19th or 20th when he rejoins. Yes, and Irvine, just to remind you, has been penalised because his mechanics were still on the racetrack 11 seconds before the green light to go on the reconnaissance laps before the start proper. So a penalty, that's one we've seen applied 3 times now. Yep. And it's caught Eddie Irvine. They're certainly very hot on it this season. They don't want anyone getting hurt. Mechanics on the grid, we've seen it in the past. People have been run into by other cars. And Montoya then fastest first sector for him. And remember how hard he was pushing yesterday in qualifying. He flew off on his first flying lap. He's pushing just as hard today and keeping it on the road. It's lovely to see a non-McLaren or Ferrari leading the early stages of a Grand Prix. Truly led for 1 lap in Sepang with all of the carnage and chaos going on when it started to rain. And several of the teams are expecting. This is Villeneuve shaping up Frentzen, and that's 6th. Back to 5th. We've just lost those pictures. He's going for 5th place, I think, and he looks like he's made it, but Frentzen fighting back as well, and Frentzen retains that 5th place from Villeneuve, but a terrific fight indeed between those two. There's great battles all the way through the field. Those two are having a great scrap. Also having a fantastic scrap are Heidfeld and Raikkonen. And look, Montoya then, James, a 17.7. He's actually just edging away now. He's got a 0.6 of a second lead over Michael. And if you watch him at the end of the pit straight, he is definitely pulling out several yards on the Ferrari. So I'm not, unless Montoya makes a mistake, I don't see where Michael's going to pass. Seems to just get a little bit closer up to Montoya, and just pulling up the hill where the engine power is all important, Martin. This is where Montoya is able to just give himself that breathing space, and let's face it, the best place to pass it into Lagos is into turn 1, and you cannot do it unless you've got the grunt to get you up the hill. Well, exactly where Montoya passed Michael, of course. I hope you're hearing us at home, because we've lost an awful lot of electricity, sound and pictures here up in the commentary box, but if you can hear us, then you're shaping up to see a great race between new boy Montoya and Michael Schumacher. We don't know what strategies they're on at the moment. They're lapping in the 1:17s, so it suggests they've got quite a lot of fuel on board. Yeah, I would say so, because the pace in qualifying was in the sort of low 1:14s, 0.3 of a second
for every 10 kilos of fuel you carry. Now, when you qualify, you're well under 10 kilos of fuel on board the car, so just multiply it up in your heads. If you've got a one-stop fuel load on board, you're looking at something like 80 or 90 kilos of fuel, so that's 8 times 0.3. That's about 2.4 seconds in total on top of what your qualifying pace was. That looks like what we're talking about here for Montoya. Huge lockup, though, for the Colombian. It's early days yet. That's a replay of the incident just before, where Michael was able just to get alongside, just to have his first proper look, but it's pretty much the status quo at the front. There's nothing to choose between the two of them. And a little bit further back, Coulthard still sitting pretty comfortably, just 1.8 seconds behind, just biding his time in that McLaren. It's not quite got the pace of the Ferrari so far throughout the weekend, but you never know what could happen with those front two. They're both pretty fiery. Coulthard, though, popping in the fastest lap so far, a 1:17.744. Just 8 seconds behind him is Jarno Trulli in the first of the two Jordans. They're running line astern. Frentzen is fifth, trying to fight off Villeneuve in sixth place as Rubens walks dejectedly for the second time this afternoon back into the pits.
Well, of course, the crowd were all shouting Rubino before they ever went anywhere near the starting grid, but what a miserable afternoon for him. And I have to say, he seems to have had, we're watching a replay here.
The engine failure which dropped him out of the race. So it's...
This is a replay then of Ralf Schumacher, who is in the race. This is effectively a test session for him now because he's a full 4 laps down on the leader, but they clearly just threw a rear wing on it. No suspension changes, and amazingly Ralf is back out on the racetrack, but his teammate Montoya still holds the lead of this Grand Prix, and he's no shrinking violet. Montoya, he's a very confident lad, isn't he? In a calm way, but he's got a lot of self-confidence, and I do not see Michael Schumacher intimidating him off the racetrack too quickly.
By now in 19th place, as we suggested he would be, so it's cost him dearly, that mistake, because his teammate Luciano Berti is up in 12th place, and Irvine was well into the top 10 when he was called in for the stop-and-go penalty. So yet more rotten luck for Eddie Irvine. He's really having a terrible season, his second season with the Jaguar team, and Only once has he been in the points here in Brazil, back in 1999, as Villeneuve comes coasting into the pit lane. He's got some kind of problem in the British-American Racing Honda. What's the story with Villeneuve? Let's take a look.
Shaking his head as he came down the pit lane slowly, even before the pit lane speed limiter. They're going to change the tyre. That's an automatic procedure that they, the first thing they do is change all 4 wheels, and then he's away again now. So whether he picked up a puncture or what, I don't know, because quite clearly on lap 12 that is not a sensible place to be
stopping.
Yes,
it certainly looked like he must have had some kind of fairly minor problem, like a puncture, because there was no real checking of the bodywork. What are we looking at here then? An extreme close-up of car number 6 Montoya, pitching it into one of the corners. They do love their super slow-mos, these Brazilian directors. Well, those of you watching us back in England, we understand you've had a little bit of problem hearing us and seeing us. We're very sorry about that. The power supply here in Brazil apparently has not been all that it might be, but we're certainly with you now, and you're watching a cracking motor race here. There's very much a 3-horse race at the front between Juan Montoya from Colombia, Michael Schumacher from Germany, and David Coulthard from Scotland. And there's very little to choose between the 3 of them. Coulthard is the fastest man on the racetrack at the moment, and Schumacher, Montoya, it's very, very close indeed between them. So Montoya leading Michael Schumacher, Coulthard 3rd, Trulli 4th, Trenson 5th, and Panis in 6th place. Lap 15, Interlagos, Brazil. Juan Montoya leads for BMW Williams, just 0.7 of a second ahead of Michael Schumacher, as Enrique Benoldi, one of the local drivers here from Curitiba in Brazil, comes into the pit lane in his Arrows. He was lying down in 16th place, and it's been an extremely eventful day here at Interlagos already. We've lost Rubens Barrichello, we've lost Mika Hakkinen, both very early on in the race. Ralf Schumacher was punted up the back by Rubens Barrichello, but he's back in the race, having had his rear wing replaced. It's all go here in Sao Paulo, and Montoya keeping Michael Schumacher waiting, holding him behind him. Michael not making too much of an effort at the moment to try and get past him. Coulthard looking very good in 3rd place ahead of Trulli in 4th.
Well, we do think if Montoya hadn't have put the car in the wall early on in qualifying yesterday and having to move to the spare car, he could well have been on the front row of the grid. But Michael may be sitting there quite comfortably and thinking Montoya will pit earlier than him, may have to go in for fuel earlier than him, because Michael seems almost content now to keep that gap at about 7/10 of a second, just about out of the dirty air behind a very untroubled Montoya, and Coulthard there just sitting, watching and waiting.
I think you're absolutely right, Martin. It must be the case, judging by the pace we've seen from Ferrari in these first 3 Grand Prix, and indeed Michael Schumacher's qualifying pace yesterday, the only driver to break underneath the 1:14 barrier. He has got a faster race car than Juan Montoya, and Montoya was able to get past him on the restart, not like Michael to be caught napping, but he certainly was caught napping by Montoya. And perhaps, Martin, Montoya's experience from America, where they often have safety cars and then they release them afterwards, and he's got so much experience of restarting a motor race from behind a safety car. And of course Michael has no real knowledge of Montoya. He hasn't built up a mental picture in his head yet of what kind of guy Montoya is, but I think today he'll have learned a bit more about him as we go on board with one of the 2 Saubers.
He's got a good picture now of Montoya's mentality, that's for sure. And you're coming into Mergulo, and he's fighting the car all the way through. The Sauber probably not working as well as we have seen it, although if that's Heidfeld, he's up in 7th place. It is indeed Heidfeld, so they're fighting the car out there this afternoon. Hot track temperatures. Many of the teams are expecting rain later on this afternoon. I think they were getting conflicting weather reports again, as they did in Sepang. And here we are back up then into turn 1, and a bit of action going on ahead. That will be Frentzen and Panis.
Frentzen and Panis, the battle for 5th place. Some superb onboard shots there from the car of Nick Heidfeld as he follows that terrific scrap which has been raging now. Olivier Panis really is going like a train. He started this race in 11th place on the grid, and he's now up to 5th.
That was Frentzen being passed, funnily enough, by a recovering Ralf Schumacher. So sorry again that we lost pictures and sound earlier on, but Ralf Schumacher 4 laps down, and this is just a test session now for him, but he's steaming through the field and past Frentzen very easily.
So amazing drama here as we look at the car of Nick Heidfeld, and you really have to say the Saubers have been going superbly well this weekend. That car designed by Sergio Rinland, the Argentinian designer, used to work many years for the Brabham team, and Rinland mysteriously designing this car and then leaving the Sauber team before it was even launched back in February. And Stephen Taylor now the technical director of that Sauber team, an unknown guy, came out of McLaren. But here's again Ralf Schumacher making that move and going past Frentzen, trying to presumably unlap himself. Yeah, he's 4 laps down on the race leaders, so he's trying to unlap himself. Yes, that's not for position, that's just Ralf really just getting on with it. Nothing else he can do other than drive his heart out. There's no chance, unless we have one of those very bizarre Grand Prix, and the start of this Grand Prix looked like it could well be that way. There's no chance of him getting a point today. Normally there's at least 10 or 11 finishers, and he's got to be at the back of them, having lost so much time while they replace that rear wing. I just hope he doesn't have any suspension damage on that car that lets him down later on. But this is the sister car of Montoya, and still maintaining now a 0.9 second lead, just on the fastest first sector of anybody in this Grand Prix, and Michael can't do anything about him. So there's a huge crowd of Colombians have come down here. This is the closest Grand Prix to their home, of course, here in South America, and they've come out in their droves. They're right in front of us. We're just above the main stand, opposite the pit lane, just up on the left of your pitch at the moment, and a huge crowd as Hakkinen there talks to his team boss, Ron Dennis, and says, listen, I've got 1 point here in the championship. What are we going to do about it? Yeah, and clearly it was when he hooked first gear that the engine stalled. It wasn't the start. He didn't get into the start procedure. Mickett already had his arms out of the cockpit before the start proper, as it were. So sometimes if you don't have quite enough revs on, you just hook that gear, the clutch is dragging slightly, the engine dies. These engines have very little inertia and momentum down at the low RPM. They're designed to work up at 17,500 RPM. Tiny flywheels. They are so easy to stall. So who is this man that all these Colombians have travelled all this distance to come and see? Well, he's 25 years old. It's his 3rd Grand Prix start only. He was the test driver for the Williams team back in 1998 when he also blitzed the Formula 3000 Championship. He's a great favourite of Frank Williams, who decided to take Ralf Schumacher instead of Montoya a couple of years ago when he was looking for someone to drive alongside Zanardi. And, well, he was a bit peaked, but he went off to America. He raced for Chip Ganassi over there in the Champ Car Series, and he won the championship over there first time out. and certainly put a lot of people's backs up, not least Michael Andretti, who was the kingpin over there. He put him into the wall fairly early on in his Champ Car experience. It was a marker to him and to everybody else. I'm here, I mean business, and you better pay attention. And this here today at Sao Paulo, he's done the same thing to Michael Schumacher. He has had success here in Brazil. He won the Champ Car race at Rio, and he's going very strongly indeed at the moment. I spoke to him, had a long chat with him on Friday, and he said that he felt he was just beginning to get on top of these Formula One cars now. He said you need to be much more precise with the steering than you do with one of these those big heavy Champ cars, and he said it's taken me time. I feel I am beginning to get there. Well, the proof, as they say, is in the eating.
This is another replay then of this time. This was Panis taking position from Frentzen. That's quite a lot earlier on in the race, actually. So Panis has been in 5th for some time now. In fact, that's Panis taking Panis then passing Trulli for 4th place. Panis, I'm sure, on a 2-stopper.
Yeah, we saw him this morning going very quickly in the warm-up, Olivier Panis. He was in 7th place, looking very strong indeed, and it seemed clear to me he was running with a lightish fuel load, so he's obviously trying to make up places. You can do that here in Brazil. You can attack, and he's up into 5th place at the moment. We're on lap 20 at the moment. He's going to have to stop. If he is on a 2-stop strategy, he's going to have to make a stop sometime in the next 3 to 5 laps, and that will drop him down to somewhere around 13th or 14th. Still an awful lot to play. We're also waiting to see exactly what Montoya's going to do as he sets a new fastest lap in a 1:17.132. What's Michael going to do? What's his strategy going to be? At the moment, it's even Stevens at the front. Montoya, Schumacher, Coulthard, lap 21. Lap 23 at Interlagos. You're watching the battle for 10th place between Verstappen, Berti and Fisichella. Montoya still leading the race ahead of Michael Schumacher and David Coulthard. Michael, though, has got a little bit closer. He's 9/10 of a second behind Montoya. And Montoya must have made some kind of little slip or possibly outbraked himself into one of the corners there, because Michael took half a second out of him that last lap as we look at Jenson Button.
Yeah, that's Button being passed by Irvine. Irvine having that stop and go earlier on. So they're fighting for 17th and 18th place at the moment. Irvine now taking that 17th place. This is back with the squabble for 10, 11 and 12 for Stappen, Bertie and Fisichella.
Well, we must apologise to you back in the UK and around the world. We've had a few sound problems, we understand. Something to do with power here at the Interlagos circuit, and we're very sorry about that, but we hope you're enjoying this Brazilian Grand Prix as much as Martin and I are, because it really is all action throughout the field, and we're just entering now the interesting period when we start to think about pit strategy, and it's certainly going to be very interesting indeed. We expect Panis to be two-stopping, we expect him in at some point soon, but what about the front runners and what about these guys?
Yes, over here you're either walking into sort of cabins and buildings that are, as we watch the Prost of a Lacey in the pit, but you're either walking into cabins that are fully electrified, or there's no electricity whatsoever. But a Lacey then in the first lap, 24. That will be a scheduled stop for Lacey. He clearly then on a two-stopper. We're just about in that zone now. It'll be interesting to see which of the front runners has to come in and have a look. And Bertie then with a very, very good slipstream. But that's not a long straight on the way into turn 4, and it's very slippery up the inside if you decide to have a big dive.
Lacey then bang on target for a two-stopper, just as we predicted, but Olivier Panis is the man we've got our eye on, currently running in 4th place. And
Schumacher in the pit.
Schumacher
Michael Schumacher in the pit he then clearly is on a two-stopper too, so Montoya then has more fuel on board than Schumacher.
Possibly, or this may be a tactic by Ross Brawn to just try and do something different. How long is the fuel hose on for? 9.6 seconds. Interesting. Well, very interesting. That's pretty much a two-stop strategy. It looks to me as though that is what Michael had in mind. And last year he did it. He stopped a little earlier last year. It was lap 20, but of course he made that mercurial start and was definitely keen to put as much space between himself and the McLarens as he could. This year he's unexpectedly found himself behind a Williams BMW. He might have in the back of his mind thought it could be his brother, but it's not his brother. It's Juan Montoya who was in front of him, and Montoya looking quite strong. How much fuel is in this Williams BMW car? That is the $10 million question here in Interlagos this afternoon, as we see Gaston Mazzacani in the second of the two pros coming in for his first scheduled fuel stop.
Montoya then with a 2.9 second lead now over David Coulthard. We'll have to see where Michael Schumacher comes out. He'll be in the pack somewhere, no doubt about it. That's a reasonably long fuel that's going to be quite a long middle stint, I'd imagine. And Williams then shaping up to lap the Jaguar, Montoya lapping the Jaguar then of Eddie Irvine.
Yeah, I've got my chart here, Martin, which I normally do before the race, and I reckon that's 60 kilos of fuel that's gone into Michael's car, so that's good enough to give him about 31 laps. So he can do 31 laps on that fuel, give or take. About 60 kilos of fuel has gone in. Now, I just wonder, in the back of my mind, whether they're doing some sort of switch here to deliberately put Michael out of sequence with Montoya, perhaps to give Montoya I don't know, just to mess around with his head.
No, I think they'll be looking at the traffic further down the field, and they'll have worked out where Michael will feed back in and hope he has a bit of clear space and clear air then to pump his famous mid-race lap times in and leapfrog Montoya somewhere. But if Montoya's on a one-stopper, that's not going to work.
Let's listen to his technique.
Very cautious through there. That is where he flew off the road yesterday. Very calm, isn't it? I mean, a little bit of overstay. I noticed that several times when we've gone on board with Montoya. He applies the throttle very, very aggressively. I think that's still from the IndyCar days of a bit of turbo lag, but he gets away with it now, but he's been very, very aggressive on the throttle. Now he brakes about 90 metres before the corner, and he's got to shed 130 miles an hour in that time. And off board now, and he's screaming through turn 3.
So David Coulthard now in second place, Mika Hakkinen out of the race, and down at the McLaren garage is Ted Kravitz.
As I can tell you, there were some surprised looks on the McLaren mechanics' faces when Michael came in for that stop. I'm pretty sure DC's just on the one-stopper. Now, the whole of this pit is really willing David Coulthard on. He's equal second in the championship, and of course now with Rubens and Mika out, he's got a great opportunity to extend his points, and Montoya and the Schumacher battling is only helping Coulthard.
Thank you for that, Ted. While you were talking there, we saw Michael Schumacher just making a move on the Jordan, and it looked pretty easy to me, Martin.
It's considering how much fuel, of course, Michael's got on board. We know he's just been in for a tankful. Of course, he is on fresh tyres, but we've seen a lot of cars pass the Jordans in a straight line this afternoon. They must be running a lot of wing and a lot of fuel. They could be fueled up over 100 kilos to go a very, very long one-stopper. But Michael then immediately back up into 5th place.
And BAR are getting ready for a pit stop. Is it going to be Olivier Panis or is it going to be Jacques Villeneuve? We've seen Villeneuve in already, as we see here the Williams of Montoya lapping the Minardi into turn 1, and we expected to see Panis coming in. He is at 3rd at the moment, and of course this has always been a great circuit for Olivier Panis. He finished on the podium here back in 1997 when he was racing for the Prost team, put on a spectacular performance that day on a one-stop strategy. Today it looks like he's on a 2, as we see again Michael making the move.
Yeah, easy for Michael. He had the line and just moves to the outside to put the frighteners on Frentzen. But Michael already then the fastest man in the mid-sector, and this could be a 10-12 lap storm for Michael to try to leapfrog that Williams.
Looks like it. Here's the BAR in the pits. Which one is it? It looks like it's Panis. It is indeed 8.4, bang on schedule. A little bit late indeed coming in on lap 28 for a 2-stopper, but short-fueled it, so he's obviously going to sprint now this next segment. And keep your eyes on Olivier Panis, folks, because there's an awful lot more to come from him. And in the battle, of course, a terrific battle raging between BAR and the Jordan team, both powered by the Honda engines. Currently, it's honours to BAR. They're looking pretty strong, although that stop will have promoted Trulli now. So Trulli will be in front of the first of the BARs. But look at this slide.
Big slide there from in turn 7. He hooked the right front on the curb, and it tends to pluck the car in sometimes. And Montoya still pushing hard, but I tell you what, if he goes to about lap 35 here, you know, that's going to shock an awful lot of people in the Formula 1 pit lane if that's on a one-stop fuel and easily matching Michael Schumacher's pace. And Coulthard had a slow lap the last time around. I'm assuming that's Button coming in the pits for his first stop of the afternoon. I'm assuming Coulthard must have met some traffic because his pace down to turn 3 is back on schedule.
Wretched afternoon once again for Jenson Button. Twice this weekend he's been bottom of the timesheets, and what a difference a year makes, as of course the 12 months ago he got his first World Championship point. There's a problem here on this stop. It's all over for Jenson Button. As I say, 12 months ago he outqualified Ralf Schumacher, let's not forget, and got his first World Championship point. This man, though, took his Williams drive. Frank Williams decided to give Montoya his opportunity. Jenson made the switch to Benetton. It's certainly a learning year for him. It's going to be very, very hard work getting this radical new Renault engine up to speed. It's currently about 100 horsepower down on the benchmark engine, which is the BMW, the Mercedes and the Ferrari. And poor old Jenson, a miserable weekend comes to an end. Never got higher than 17th in this race. In fact, he never got higher than 17th in any session of this entire weekend.
Well, as the fuel's going down, another new fastest lap of the race then for Montoya. So no drop-off at all from those Michelin tyres, none whatsoever. Just burning the fuel around at 2.5, 3 litres per lap, enabling just to edge the times down. A good, solid, consistent, professional drive from Montoya, and he looks well under control, doesn't he? Coulthard to his fastest lap of the race so far, just a 1/10 of a second slower, but the lead now Montoya's edged out to 4.2 seconds.
Yes, Montoya looking very tidy, very controlled and pushing hard. 4.2 seconds up on Coulthard. Michael Schumacher, though, back up into 3rd place, 30-second behind. And, well, one man who's had an eventful afternoon today is Rubens Barrichello, and he's down well with Louise.
He has indeed, James. Rubens, probably the biggest racing weekend of your year. It's all gone horribly wrong, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I've been asking myself the last minutes. I mean, why those things happen? I mean, why? I mean, okay, you have to keep your smiling going. You have to think on the positive side. But in the question of 10 minutes, I had probably everything going wrong. I mean, I had the car breaking down on a formation lap. I had to run up here. I had 30 seconds to go to the grid. When I get to the grid, I had to change more. It wasn't my car. I mean, the engineers and the mechanics did a fantastic job for me to feel at least at home. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it was like that. And then, you know, I really brought my heartbeat from 200 to 80. I was feeling calm. And then on that straight, I was feeling calm on my right side. I knew something was going on in between Ralf and the guy in front. Maybe it was a Jordan. And then all of a sudden what I saw was a car coming my way and braking. That's, I mean, it took me so much by surprise, and that's a discussion we had on the briefing on the other day. I mean, are you allowed to change so many lines in the course? So it's really bad.
Thanks, Rubens. Bad luck.
Okay, Rubens light.
Well, I can see out of the window here, thunder, lightning, and it is clearly raining in the distance. Whether it's going to get close enough to this racetrack to interrupt this afternoon, I don't know. Certainly many of the teams are expecting it, and that's always a great yahoo, isn't it, when that happens?
Well, of course, if it does start to rain, the man that's going to favour is Montoya, because he hasn't stopped yet. He looks like he's building up to a stop. Michael, of course, has just been in, and he would be the loser. Let's just recap, take a couple of seconds out here to just recap and remember exactly what's happened so far in this extraordinary Brazilian Grand Prix. Rubens Barrichello, his race car failed on the parade lap, and he had to run back and get into the spare car. He then smashed into the back of Ralf Schumacher right here at Lake Descent corner on lap 2. That brought out the safety car. It put Rubens out of the race, as we've just heard from Louise, and it put Ralf Schumacher into the pits to put a spare wing on. He's now back in the race, but he's not classified. He's way outside the top 17, 4 laps down. Juan Montoya then put an incredible move at the restart on Michael Schumacher, the race leader, and he took the lead as Ralf Schumacher well, he's unlapping himself, actually. It's very confusing watching that Williams unlapping itself, because it looks like passes for position. It's not, folks. He's just trying to unlap himself on the Jordan. But Montoya dived down the inside, a very bold move on Michael Schumacher. He took the lead, and he's looked very comfortable ever since. David Coulthard was comfortable in 3rd place. Michael made a surprise pit stop on lap 25, and he's now in 3rd place. So Montoya leads on lap 32 from Coulthard, Michael Schumacher, Trulli, Frentzen and Heidfeld.
Yes, but what's more significant here, James, is that Schumacher's 0.4 of a second slower than Montoya and Coulthard. So if he wanted to put a spurt on in the mid-sector of this race, it's not paying off at the moment, even though we know he fueled it quite heavily. 9.6 seconds worth of fuel, quite a lot, a long stint, but it's really not released him. He's not making any ground up.
You would expect Montoya, of course, to be fast at this stage, as Rubens Barrichello has a quick word with the Ferrari team technical director Ross Brawn there, saying, well, listen, let's hope for better luck in San Marino in 2 weeks' time. A bitterly disappointed Rubens Barrichello. But you would expect Montoya to be quick at this stage, because he's very, very light on fuel now. He's probably down to his last 10 kilos of fuel in that Williams BMW car, and Rubens waves to his adoring public. And of course, Michael Schumacher, we know, has got at least 50 kilos of fuel left in the car. So it is surprising to see exactly how this thing is shaping up. But the question mark, of course, also is this the race where Michelin finally prove they are the tyre to have? Because Montoya on the Michelins seems to have the measure of everybody else.
News from the pit lane, it's just starting to spit with rain. And we can see the rain out in the distance. Just don't know if it's going to quite make the edge of the circuit. So we could be in for some excitement yet, no doubt about it. Coulthard maintaining that gap now behind Montoya to 4.4 seconds. And you're still watching the squabble there of Verstappen and Fisichella for what is now 9th and 10th place.
Well, for those of you who enjoy this kind of tactical battle, you're certainly seeing a fantastic piece of tactical driving today by Juan Montoya and by the Williams team. Sam Michael, of course, is the chief engineer there. He's the man calling the race strategies nowadays at Williams. He's one of the bright young things in the Formula One engineering world. He's tipped as being the next Adrian Newey. In fact, that's how highly he's thought of. Was top man at Jordan, but of course switched through the winter over to the Williams team. And I was talking to him this weekend, and he certainly is very, very bright lad. And he's got Montoya hooked up. It's working very, very well for him, and he seems to have outthought even Ross Brawn at this stage.
Rejoining the racetrack, we saw him parking up earlier on for what looked like a normal pit stop. Then they pulled it in the garage. They clearly fixed that, and Jenson Button then back on the racetrack. He's going to be some 4 or 5 laps down, I would guess.
So Juan Montoya leading, and we're just taking a look at a replay as Villeneuve in 11th place gets it a little bit wrong and takes to the grass, having a miserable weekend this weekend. Jacques Villeneuve, 97 Formula One world champion, won here that year at Interlagos on his way to the World Championship. But this year he really has been outpaced by his teammate Olivier Panis, who's been threatening to get on terms with Villeneuve, but this has been the race where he's done it. Yeah,
Panis has been a match for Villeneuve, no doubt about it, and we saw that kind of pace from Panis when he was test driver in McLaren last year, but wondered if it would retranslate back into Grand Prix, and it certainly has done so. But Villeneuve, the reason he's down in 11th place is he had an early pit stop after what looked like a puncture.
Yes, indeed he did, and we understand from the pits that the rain is beginning to fall just a little bit heavier now, and this, of course, is playing beautifully into the hands of Juan Montoya, because he's certainly into the one-stop pit window. He can come in any time now and fuel it to the finish, and, well, of course, it might stop raining, in which case being on any kind of wet tyres might not be the thing, but this is a very delicate time of the race. You don't want to blink first at this time of the race.
No, but they really hope, if it's going to rain, both Montoya and Coulthard need it to rain in the next 3 or 4 laps, otherwise they will be making 2 stops. But as we well know, James, tricky conditions, changeable, rainy conditions is Michael Schumacher territory. He's currently 32.8 seconds behind Montoya because he's on a 2-stop strategy. He's had the first of those pit stops. They've both got to pit one more time, of course. So Michael, 32 seconds out of bed.
He's got some work to do, has Michael Schumacher. He said before this race, my winning streak must come to an end. It must, sooner or later. That is just the way the world works. And, of course, he was tempting fate a little bit, but is this going to be the weekend where not only does his winning streak come to an end, but Juan Montoya's winning streak begins? Because this young 25-year-old Colombian has certainly shaken the Formula One establishment to its core with this performance here today. Incredible pace, incredible aggression, and we now know he had a lot of fuel on board when he fought Michael Schumacher, who did not have a lot of fuel on board at the time.
Yeah, good point. I mean, he outbraked Michael, didn't he, with that move, and as the pace car released them, he was more ready than anybody else. And he outbraked him with, now we know, another 20-25 kilos of gas on board. So from 190 miles an hour, 25 kilos makes a big difference when you're trying to slow a car down, especially if the tyres are a bit cool. Although, of course, the safety car was out only for effectively 2 laps of this race while they cleared Häkkinen's car off of the start-finish line after he stalled whilst engaging first gear. And that is Michael losing time there behind the Prost.
Well, they're starting to put their raincoats on in the grandstands in front of us. Some of them have got Colombian flags painted on the back of them. There are wet tyres ready, there are intermediate tyres ready in the pits for the drivers who are going to make their pit stops. It's a very, very nervous and tense time. You don't want to jump too soon, make the wrong decision. When it rains here, it tends to absolutely dump on the track huge amounts of water, but not for necessarily an awfully long time. A little bit like what we saw in Malaysia.
Well, of course, you've got such high track temperatures that it soon burns off, doesn't it? We've got a temperature, an air and track temperature out there at the moment of 27 centigrade, so 62% humidity, and the pressure is dropping, 926 millibars. We've got a bit of altitude here anyway, but all the signs are that it could well rain, and
well, Mika Häkkinen told you on the grid he thought it was going to rain. He didn't know that he wouldn't be in the race at the time, but he certainly said he thought it was going to rain, and it looks like it might. For the second Grand Prix in succession, we're heading towards some uncertain times and some uncertain weather. And who is it going to play out for? Is it going to play out for Montoya, Coulthard, or Michael Schumacher?
That's
As we
Kimi
look at the
Räikkönen.
Sauber, Kimi Räikkönen.
Yeah, Räikkönen in the pits from 8th place. Another very solid drive from him. Seemed to be an awful long time getting away there, and clearly a one-stopper. That's about right for the amount of fuel to go in, but seemed to be late getting away.
But he was on slicks, Martin. Did you see that? He noticed he was on the slick tyre, which is very brave. Well, he couldn't do anything else at this time. There's no water on the track.
No option, James. Wet tyres on that track, and you'll be 2 or 3 laps. Oh, and
whoa,
that's...
It's Montoya! Montoya's out of the motor race! Unbelievable! He's been rammed from behind by one of the back markers. It's the Arrows. It's absolutely incredible. It's Jos Verstappen has taken Juan Montoya out of this motor race. I think it's Montoya, is it?
Yes, it is.
Oh, my good Lord. What drama here in Sao Paulo. In front of us, they're almost crying. The Colombians, they thought they were going to see a debut Grand Prix win, and you are in big, big trouble from the big Colombian man when he catches up with you.
And that was a nasty incident. It's lucky the Arrows didn't fly and start rolling over there. Luckily, the wheel ties keeping his wheel in place there. And let's watch it. He moves out of the way for Montoya, lets Montoya through, and then just runs straight into the back of him. Almost like he got sucked into the braking zone and just misread the whole situation.
Wow, what an absolutely incredible development here at Interlagos. Juan Montoya on his way, looking very strong indeed, and Jos Verstappen, having let him come through, has made an absolutely dreadful, dreadful mistake, and he walks away looking very sheepish.
Verstappen ran over my head there back in 1994 when, do you remember he got together with Irvine and had a big incident at turn turn 4 there, managing to drive through my cockpit on his way. But that's your new race leader then, David Coulthard. And again, lots of debris and rubbish on the track. You always get a lot of litter over there. There's a big grandstand full of people, and I think just the swirl around this bowl of the air movement, there's always a lot of litter and rubbish, and a big bolt of lightning about 5 miles in the distance just striking the ground here in Sao Paulo.
Speaking of striking the ground, I've no doubt the mechanics down at Williams are doing just that. What's happening, Ted?
Yeah, it's terrible. Patrick Head walked off the pit wall with a face like the thunder that we think is about to come as the McLaren mechanics just take to their pit box. Williams smelt blood. They really smelt their first win since Jacques Villeneuve won at the Nürburgring in '97, and it's been cruelly taken away from them.
Thank you, Ted.
And look, Heidfeld there trying to get out of the pit stop, and the refueler could not get the nozzle out. So a disastrous pit stop there for Heidfeld, who was in 7th place. But he had something like 22 seconds advantage on Fisichella behind him. And
here comes Coulthard. Yep, Coulthard into the pit lane now. This is your race leader, lap 39. He'll fuel it to go to the finish, almost certainly. But the key question is, can he get out in front of Michael Schumacher, who at the end of this lap is 30.3 seconds behind him, and that is almost exactly what you need to make one stop. It's going to be very, very close.
A lot of fuel got to go in.
9.8, is he going to do it? Down the pit straight, we're looking for Michael Schumacher. Here comes Schumacher, and Schumacher is... No, he's not going to do it. But it looks like Coulthard's going to retain the lead.
It's a very slow pit exit. I think Coulthard should just stay ahead. He should have 2 or 3 seconds in hand. There he is, yes. He's got to build up to speed. You run around the inside of turn 3 here. And now David up to speed, and Michael will just pop out behind him, just working out. But of course, Coulthard, if it doesn't rain, Coulthard does not have to stop again in this race. Michael Schumacher, we're pretty sure, has.
Yes, he definitely has to stop again, Martin. No question about that. And this is an incredible turnaround from what we expected in this Brazilian Grand Prix. I can't remember ever seeing a dull Brazilian Grand Prix. It's the kind of place where things happen, and they're certainly happening here today. Coulthard leads on lap 40 from Michael Schumacher, Trulli in 3rd and Frentzen in 4th.
Coulthard with a very fat car now. You would expect Michael Schumacher to be able to haul him in quite easily in this phase of the Grand Prix. A lot of understeer there. David struggling to get the car there through turns 7 and 8. A new set of tyres. They're a while before the whole carcass and tread comes up to the operating temperature that you want, and that's why Michael Schumacher can home in on him as they head up towards the start-finish line. But you have to say, the Ferrari, although Michael was on pole, it was a Michael lap. Barrichello was down in 6th place on the grid. The Ferrari has not had anything like the advantage that it showed at the first 2 Grand Prix, and we've clearly seen that this afternoon. Coulthard really, the car bucking around there. What happens is, stick 80, 90 kilos of fuel on board, and the ride height, the rear ride height, it goes down quite a lot. It's 20% of the weight of the car, and then you start hitting the ground harder in those first few laps, and you have to be a little bit wary.
It's not a wedding you're at, folks. That's just litter coming out of the grandstands. They've been here since 7 o'clock this morning. They've been going crazy in the sun. They've been eating their crisps, and they're now throwing the packets onto the racetrack, and it's quite a dramatic sight. Let's hope none of those go into the radiators of any of these cars, because they'll send the temperatures through the roof. But McLaren made some improvements to this car. They worked hard in testing in Barcelona last week. They came here with 4 different front wings. They've tried them all throughout the weekend. Adrian Newey, the chief designer, the head man in the technical department at McLaren, has been working night and day. He's not here this weekend. He's working so hard on trying to improve this McLaren. He's been flat out trying to just get them more front-end downforce to get this McLaren on terms of Ferrari. At the moment, it looks quite good for McLaren.
Now, this is not such a high downforce circuit as some of them, and I think it's more in the zone where the McLaren has been working better anyway. They've been maxed out on their aero settings, and I think this circuit definitely played into the McLaren zone. But Coulthard and Michael Schumacher have had a few run-ins in the past, but it's normally Coulthard trying to pass Michael rather than the other way around, isn't it? But if Michael wants any chance of winning this race, he needs to leapfrog past the McLaren. Haven't seen any signs yet that he's easily got the speed to do that.
Yes, Coulthard fueling it to the finish there. Well over 90 kilos will have gone into that car at the start. Ralf Schumacher pressing on in 15th place. Just set the fastest lap of the race there, Ralf Schumacher, in a 1:15.693. He's going like a rocket, but it's no good to him because he's 4 laps down. Just trying to prove a point, and that point, I think, is just what Montoya would have been able to do had he not been taken out of this race by Jos Verstappen. The 2 Jordans running line astern, we haven't seen much of them this afternoon, other than them being passed by other people. They're 3rd and 4th, though. It's playing out out for Eddie Jordan. Just celebrated his 53rd birthday a couple of days ago in fantastic style as one of the Benettons comes in, Fisichella. So, but at the moment, Eddie Jordan's 2 cars are running 3rd and 4th, looking reasonably comfortable. Panis is in 5th place. He's on a 2-stopper. The 2 Jordans appear to be on a 1-stopper. They've yet to make their stops, I believe. But well, actually, who's in the pits there for VAR? Just behind that Fisichella, it's Villeneuve again. They've got problems with that car.
There's a good scrap. It's a long stop there for Jacques Villeneuve. A good scrap shaping up. Panis in 5th. On a different strategy, but much faster than the 2 Jordans, and he's just 6 seconds behind them.
One of the Jordans looks like he just came into pit lane. I can tell you, it doesn't look as though the mechanics are ready for him. Yes, it's Frentzen, and I'm looking straight out, and they were not ready, but they've rushed out all of a sudden. Still
taking the blankets off the tyres down there at Jordan, so Frentzen then in for his what should be his one and only stop of the afternoon, assuming that the rain we can see in the distance doesn't make it to the edge of the racetrack. And there's the man with the starter. That's just in case Frentzen stalls the engine, so that's a precautionary thing.
Good stop by the Jordan team. Anything under 11 seconds for a 1-stop fuel load is pretty good around here. Frentzen back into the race, was 4th. He'll have dropped down behind Panis now, so Panis gets back up to 4th place. But he will rejoin in front of Heidfeld, so Frentzen down into 5th place. Coulthard leading on lap 43 from Michael Schumacher, Trulli, Panis, Frentzen, Heidfeld. Raikkonen still in 7th place, waiting to pick any points up if anybody should drop out. He's only 1 second behind his teammate Heidfeld, having a super race here. The young 21-year-old Finnish rookie. This is only his 27th car race ever, and once again he's really on it. Irvine up into 8th despite having a stop-and-go penalty earlier in the race. Alesi 9th and Fisichella 10th for Benetton.
So next man to stop must be Jarno Trulli anytime soon, the current 3rd place man, and we believe he's on his, yes he is.
Here he is.
Trulli then in for his one and only stop from 3rd place.
Jarno Trulli, the young Italian driver, has been very disappointed with his form so far, but he's been running very strongly this weekend. He's beginning to turn it round. Let's watch his stop, see what happens.
22 men working on that car.
Pretty routine, it looks to me.
Lots of revs, and they can't get the refueler off.
Yes, the fuel hose won't come off, and Trulli lost a couple of seconds there. That will have cost him dearly. And the most incredible bolt of lightning, a vertical bolt of lightning, just to the right out of our commentary position over the city of Sao Paulo. So, lap 44, Coulthard leading from Schumacher, Panis. Trulli is 4th, Frentzen 5th, and Mick Heidfeld is in 6th place.
I can see rain.
That's your race leader, David Coulthard, but it's raining quite hard now here in Brazil, and he's going to have to make a pit stop because he is losing a lot of time.
And this is Michael coming in 1 lap earlier than Coulthard. This is played beautifully into the hands of Schumacher and Ferrari, and Coulthard must have lost a half a minute by tiptoeing round on the wrong tyres. Intermediate's going on. Intermediate is the right tyre this time. I have no idea why Coulthard waited 1 more lap to come in. It's going to cost him a Grand Prix. It's cost him something around 20 seconds. He had a 3-second advantage over Michael Schumacher, but of course Schumacher had to pit again anyway for fuel, so now he's got the fuel, he's got the right tyres, and Coulthard stayed out a lap too long, and it's blown it.
And was it a decision of the teams? Was it a decision of the driver? I looked out of the commentary box window. There was no sign of the mechanics out there when the Ferrari mechanics, the BAR and Jordan guys were all out there. Some teams actually queued the 2 cars together. We had Trulli sitting behind Frentzen. We had Villeneuve sitting ahead of Panis, who's lost time in all of this. But the man who's lost the most, Michael spun it! Michael Schumacher, has he kept the clutch in? Yes, he has. He's got away with it. He gets away with it so often, Michael Schumacher. And he's got away with it again here in Brazil today. He keeps the lead of the motor race.
And there's Coulthard, look, second place man Coulthard coming up behind him. We don't know yet exactly what tyres that Coulthard put on. Michael's struggling.
Michael's on intermediates. We saw Michael on intermediates,
yeah, for sure. Michael,
I think I saw Coulthard on intermediates as well, but look at that.
Yeah, but that was on touching the white line. That's why he went off. It's not the volume of water there that spun Michael. It was the white line. He hooked the rear tyre up on the white line coming out of 4, and Coulthard then should be just behind him.
We're just getting word from Ted in the pits that Coulthard is in fact on intermediate tyres as well, so it's even Stevens. They're both using the same tyre. Now Ferrari have done more testing with this intermediate tyre, and over in Italy it paid dividends for them 2 weeks ago in Malaysia. You remember that Michael put them on and went away to win the race. He was about 4 seconds a lap faster on a drying track than the McLarens, but here today McLaren have learned the lesson. They too have gone for the intermediate tyres. They don't have quite as much experience or understanding of them, but can Coulthard drive them as well as Michael? We will find out. Ted is down in the pit lane.
Yeah, Martin, I think I might have an idea as to why they waited so long before Coulthard came in and put those inters on. The sun is actually out. It's kind of raining. It is actually raining pretty hard down here, but the sun is out. I think they were just holding fire to see what the weather actually did in case it stopped and he could stay out. But as you say, I'm pretty sure this has lost David Coulthard a Grand Prix today.
Well, it may have just played back into his hands a little bit, though, with Michael's mistake down here at turn 4. And he'll keep well wide of that white line this time around, as he does. And surely, yes, the track will be drying rather than getting wetter. The rain has stopped. As you say, the sun is out, and Louise is with Montoya.
A huddle beneath an umbrella with Juan Pablo Montoya. Looking at this weather, are you glad in a way that you're not out there?
Not really, you know, I think we had a very healthy lead, and we're looking really strong for a race win here. But a bit disappointed with that, we couldn't really get it. But, you know, I'm still happy for BMW, Williams and Michelin. They all three did a fantastic job, and just want to thank everybody.
Thanks, Juan Pablo. Amazing to see the boys still smiling.
Very American style there, thanking all of your team and your sponsors and your mechanics. That's what they do all of the time over there. But it was calm and collected, wasn't he? I think he'll be very satisfied with a brilliant performance this afternoon, Montoya. Taken out by Verstappen, who had a bit of brain fade. He let Montoya through and then ran into the back of him as he was being lapped. But Coulthard at the moment able to stay in the wake there. And who's that coming through?
Somebody making a move on Michael, it looked like, from behind.
And it's Coulthard. It's Coulthard coming up the inside of Michael. Mind the back marker, and
either side
move there.
of Marquez they go. Either side of the Minardi, and David Coulthard has taken the lead of the Brazilian Grand Prix away from Michael Schumacher. Schumacher made a mistake 2 laps ago. He made an even bigger one on that lap into turn 1. He was outsighted by the back marker, and Coulthard's through. Great driving, just like we saw in the French Grand Prix last year, Martin. He's not afraid to have a go, and he's had a go, and he's passed him.
But I tell you what was particularly brave about that is Coulthard was in the spray of 2 cars, the Ferrari and then the Minardi, and here he comes up and he decides a brave move then to just commit, and luckily the Minardi is having a bit of a moment all of its own and left space on the inside for Coulthard, didn't turn in on him, and Michael well and truly snookered around the outside.
What a great Grand Prix this is turning out to be. It's still raining, although, as Ted was saying, the sun is coming out as well, and Michael's staring now at the back of a McLaren Mercedes rear wing, something he hasn't done at all so far in the 2001 Grand Prix season, but he's doing it now, and we've got 22 laps to go, and anything could happen from here.
Yeah, some of the cars went out on full wets. We saw the Jordans, for example, going on to the full wets, and we know from Sepang and we know from Ferrari testing that they found no more aquaplaning on these inters than on the full wets, and Coulthard's certainly happy on them, isn't he? And he's picked up already. Let's see what he's got. Look at the gap, look at the lead he's got over Michael as at the end of the first lap, after he's passed him, a full 1.5 seconds. I hope David remembers when he was leading the Nürburgring race a couple of years back that so easily when he went off by pushing too hard too early, and
Mazzacani, that is, just having a bit of a spin. Let's just talk a little bit about intermediate tyres. What do we mean, Martin, by intermediate tyres? They're a lighter rain tyre, aren't they?
Yes, they've got more rubber on the track, basically, and smaller, lower grooves, so that they don't clear the water as well, but they give you more grip. An intermediate means it's halfway between a wet and a slick.
Yeah, both the Jordans, well, Trulli putting the wets on, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, we believe, putting intermediate tyres on. Of course, everybody, Formula One, everybody follows everybody else in this game, and everyone looked at what Ross Brawn and the two Ferrari drivers did in Malaysia 2 weeks ago, putting the intermediate tyres on in the middle of a deluge, and this weekend it looks like some of them have copied, others have gone their own way, and it's very wet out there now.
Michael's finding some speed now, James, and Coulthard appearing to be extremely cautious and trying to almost do the karting line, going around the outside. This is a replay, I don't know what of. Looks like the Jordan getting pinched.
It's Trulli and Raikkonen.
Really.
Trulli
Yes.
and Heidfeld, I beg your pardon, having a scrap there. Trulli and Heidfeld for fourth place. So Trulli taking fourth place off Nick Heidfeld, who was going very strongly once again for the Sauber team. And the track seems to be wetter in some places than others, as we saw a couple of weeks ago in Malaysia. It's not quite the same situation as there, because in Malaysia we had a very wet part of the track and some of it was bone dry. Here it's all wet, but some parts are wetter than others.
I tell you, you need some fantastic belief in your car when you're coming along this pit straight here on intermediates with that amount of water on the racetrack. Luckily, at 190 miles an hour, you got a stunning amount of downforce. The car's being pushed onto the racetrack, and it's that part of the racetrack where Coulthard seems much happier. Now, homing in. Oh, and look, Heidfeld there, the Sauber there, getting out of shape all by itself in the middle of the straight.
In a straight line, not even trying to turn a corner, and it's absolutely pouring down out there. It really is a lot of water lying, and we're getting towards the territory where intermediates are perhaps not the tyre to have, because as you just said, Martin, they don't disperse the water quite as well as the wet tyre. They don't throw off the huge volume of water you need to get grip on a racetrack like this.
But apparently the Bridgestone Inter is a particularly good tyre. It's only a lot of standing water which is going to send that car off the racetrack, but there's plenty out there.
So Coulthard leading, 20 laps to go in this race. No one has to make another stop unless the weather conditions change and tyres are required. But in terms of refueling strategy, we believe everybody now is fueled to go to the finish. There are 20 laps left in this unbelievable 2001 Brazilian Grand Prix. Coulthard leading by 2.5 seconds from Michael Schumacher. Frentzen is in third place, Trulli is fourth, Heidfeld is fifth, and Raikkonen is in sixth place. Irvine has got up to seventh after his stop-and-go penalty. Alesi is eighth, Panis ninth, and Fisichella 10th. 20 amazing action-packed field laps, we hope, still to come. 18 laps to go here in this amazing 2001 Brazilian Grand Prix. They call Michael Schumacher the Rainmeister, but at the moment he's struggling.
And this is turn 6, Ferradura. Michael getting in too deep, bouncing across the gravel trap, heading for the tyre barrier, but just pulls it around, and anytime soon, this is another shot of it. It's a big gravel trap there, luckily for him. Gets back on the racetrack, and anytime soon you're going to see the Jaguar of Eddie Irvine pointing, and that's Irvine off for yet another time, actually. That's a different spin from Irvine. He very nearly collected Michael Schumacher, and this is a Williams of Ralf Schumacher, who's recently just pitted, so everybody going off in 6 and 7.
Brilliant sunshine on the pit straight, lots of water on the racetrack. It must be Brazil. It's a crazy situation. David Coulthard leading on lap 54 from Michael Schumacher now by 15 seconds following that off-piste excursion by the Ferrari, the reigning championship leader at the moment. Frentzen is third, his teammate Trulli is fourth. Nick Heidfeld going strongly for Sauber in fifth. Lacey looking for Get Prost's first points of the 2001 championship, and their first points since '98. Look at Michael's car control though, well, or absence of it.
Yeah, that was a different, yet another overhead angle of that turn 6 incident. So Michael losing 2 seconds a lap as well, actually, to Coulthard. Coulthard driving beautifully up front. Hope he's not pushing too hard in these conditions. But remember, these Inters, Michael went for 30-odd laps on quite a dry track in Sepang, the last Grand Prix. They tend to hang on very well, and I don't see anybody in these remaining 17 laps having to come in and change for slicks. If they chose the Inters, if they chose the full wets, they might be struggling.
Coulthard and Schumacher matched for pace, identical lap times the last time through, give or take a thousandth of a second, but Michael 17 seconds behind his adversary, and this race, Martin, would mean a lot to Coulthard. He'd go clearly P2 in the championship, he'd have 16 points. Hakkinen, of course, still only one championship point, and once again Coulthard having the strongest start to the season and putting down his credentials to win, to be the point man for McLaren. Can he go on and do it, do you think? Be the main advocate?
He struggled in qualifying, but he's driven beautifully now for all 3 of the races. He's not home yet, of course. He was actually 2 seconds quicker than Michael on that previous lap, and he really looks like he's got the car underneath him. And as you say, that would put him 19 points ahead of Hakkinen after just 3 races, which could well play into his hands nicely. But Michael's still looking strong, even if he finishes second today, of course.
Michael looking very strong for the championship, but of course we've seen over the last few years Coulthard saying over the winter, I want to go for it, I want to be the man who goes for the championship. You can see his car control, it's absolutely fantastic, David Coulthard. He was very strong in the rain at Silverstone a couple of years ago. Very, very good indeed. Made a pass on Michael Schumacher in the wet. He's done it again here today, and well, he's got 16 laps to go, and you're making a face, Martin.
He's pushing too hard. He's having moments everywhere. He's 18.9 seconds ahead, as you say, and he doesn't need to be pushing this hard. But of course, you know, if the track does dry out, he still could have a drag race to the end with Michael Schumacher. But David appears confident, appears to be under control. He's calm. Every so often, he just gets the tail end wagging, but Coulthard apparently on his way. And then the car just hooks up and flies through the final part of the lap.
Well, turned 30 last Tuesday, David Coulthard, so he's now classed as one of the more mature Grand Prix drivers, although anyone who spent an evening with him would certainly contest that. Never won here in Brazil, but has been a front row starter here the last 3 years. This year, of course, it wasn't such a pretty story for him in qualifying. He was down in 5th place, but he looked good from the start, and he's looking very good now in these treacherous conditions as Mazzacani has yet another incident. Well, it's been an incident-packed race, but particularly for Mazzacani, he's been all over the place. They're just giving a bit of icing sugar to that car.
I wonder if he had an engine failure coming down the pit straight, because that's going to give a few headaches if he did, if there's any oil on the racetrack. But Schumacher's going into that corner now and appears to have normal levels of grip.
Yeah, Schumacher faster on that last lap than David Coulthard, just taking a second back off the Scotsman. And, well, as you say, Martin, Coulthard really looking at Olivier Panis there in the foreground. Panis has slipped down into 6th place, which has popped a Lacey out of the points now. So it doesn't look as though the Prost is going to get a point just at this race. But everybody except Trulli has been lapped, so they've lapped the entire field up to Trulli. That's 4th place.
Yes, Panis very unlucky during that stop for tyres. He had to queue up for probably half a minute while they were sorting something out on Villeneuve's car. So Panis was on a strong run, splitting the Jordans earlier on. 2 Jordans then still running very strongly in 3rd and 4th together. And who have we got here? That has got to be Räikkönen out of 9th. place. So Kimi Räikkönen out of the race. We don't know whether it's a mechanical failure or whether he simply dropped it somewhere, but well into the green fields there. I suspect he spun off somewhere.
Gone 10 races now since he last won a Grand Prix, David Coulthard. Is this going to be the end of that losing streak? And a big, big moment for Räikkönen.
That's the problem around here, James. It's just, you know, the racetrack's in just such a mess, and you go off onto what should be a little grassy slide, and the next thing is you're heading into a rollover situation. But Räikkönen then lost it in turn 5, normally a very easy corner, and Michael very late on the brakes. He's got to get on with it. Of course, he is lapping there. Yes, he's lapping Panis. So Panis down in 6th place, being lapped by Michael Schumacher, and Schumacher's got to now regroup and start attacking Coulthard. He's now 16.7 seconds down, so pulling back, as you say, about a second a lap.
Yes, he's got 14 laps in which to do it, and a gap of 16.7 seconds behind. He's made the mistakes this afternoon, Michael Schumacher. This will not go down in his record books as one of his best races. We've got waved yellow flags for the various and sundry cars which are scattered around the fields here at Interlagos. Interlagos means between the lakes. There's been a lake on the racetrack today as well, and some have steered through it better than others. And certainly David Coulthard at the moment, the man with the credentials to claim to be the rainmaster here in Brazil. Who's this then? This is Panis making a move on Alesi. That was the move for 6th place, which took Panis up there into the points-paying position. Of course, he finished 4th in Australia and was disqualified, or rather he was given a penalty which dropped him down to 7th place, Panis. So these would be his first championship points of the season, and his first championship points since coming back to Formula 1 after a one-year sabbatical as a McLaren tester.
Yeah, it's very sweet of Panis and Alesi. They were waving at each other as Panis took away his 6th place.
And Coulthard has just put a lap on Jarno Trulli into turn 1. So David Coulthard going like a train here in Interlagos, putting a move on Trulli. There in a replay, I saw it out of the corner of my eye.
And Coulthard then just sweeping out of the toe, gets the right line. There's plenty of grip up the inside. You see the back of that McLaren bouncing around on the bumps, quite stiffly sprung for whatever reason. When it's surprising then he's finding this much grip on the track. And now, for sure, the water level on the track is definitely intermediate zone, and there should not be too many risks out there. But Coulthard last time lost another 0.8 of a second to Schumacher. But if he can just keep this sort of pace up and keep this aggression through the back markers, he should be okay. But remember what happened to Montoya, minding his own business, and wiped out of the race by a back marker.
Yes, absolutely extraordinary. Jos Verstappen, for those of you just joining us, the race leader Juan Montoya was going along very nicely, having thrown down a gauntlet to all and everybody in Formula 1, having passed Michael Schumacher very dramatically. And as you see, Coulthard making progress, putting another lap on Ralf Schumacher, who was also clouted by a back marker. But Verstappen pulling aside, and Montoya just slipping through, and then obviously Verstappen missed his brake pedal, smashed straight into the back of Montoya, and that was the end of the Colombian's race. So, lap 58. We've got David Coulthard leading by 15.9 seconds from Frentzen in 3rd place. Michael Schumacher in 2nd place, Frentzen 3rd, Trulli 4th, Heidfeld 5th, and Olivier Panis in 6th place. Brazilian Grand Prix, James Allen and Martin Brundle with you. David Coulthard leading the race by 17.5 seconds from Michael Schumacher. Frentzen is third, and Martin, an incidente.
Yes, Ralph going off in exactly the same place as Raikkonen had a couple of laps earlier, stalls the car but slides back onto the racetrack. They can't appear to move it out of the way too quickly. Working under waved yellows at the moment to say Marshall's on the racetrack. They had got a four-wheel drive to it and a tow rope, and I suspect they should clear it without the need for a safety car, but it's in a very critical position.
We'd seen Kimi Raikkonen in the Sauber having a spin there. Obviously, has something either gone down there or there's a lot of water just on the racing line. It's a dangerous place, but it looks like, fingers crossed, they may well have cleared it. As Coulthard, you can see him backing right off as he goes through the danger zone, those waved yellow flags. It looks like Ralph's car has been taken away, and Coulthard now 19.4 seconds clear of Michael Schumacher, who has led this motor race himself. It's been all over the place here in Brazil. Montoya has led, Michael has led, DC, David Coulthard has led as well, and at the moment he's got P1 on his pit board, and he's got 10 laps to go to try and claim his first race win for 10 Grand Prix, his first of the 2001 season, and a win which would certainly put him very strongly up there in the championship.
Yes, Michael appearing now to slow down quite a lot. Don't know why, we haven't seen him for a while on our TV screens, but there he is now, just on cue. But Michael, no apparent problems, but just backing out of it. He was starting to home in on Coulthard at 0.8, 1 second per lap, got the gap down to 15.7. Coulthard picked up his pace, and suddenly Michael's now 19.4 behind last time around.
Yes, it's not really been Michael Schumacher's afternoon here today. He's acknowledged as being the king of wet weather. They call him the Rainmaster, but he's made 2 mistakes here today in the wet, and it's given the opportunity to David Coulthard. We thought Coulthard had blown it when he did an extra lap. As the rain started to fall, everybody dived into the pits, but Coulthard did that 1 extra lap. He lost about 25 seconds. The race seemed to have gone away from him, but then Michael made 2 mistakes, and all of a sudden Coulthard was right back in the hunt. And into turn 1, the one that they've just gone through now, Coulthard made a move on Michael, either side of a back marker. It was pure drama, pure theatre, and it's given him the lead of the race.
Well, they'll not need to come in for slicks. I'm sure slicks anytime soon would be faster, and Michael's struggling there to lap the Jordan, and could not make it down the straight to get past the Jordan, which is surprising, and he's not going to yield either, although he is being lapped at this stage. But, and now he yields. No, he doesn't. No, he's just going onto the wetter part of the track. One of the Jordans we know to be on full wet, but Michael just does not appear to have a lot of speed in that car.
It's Trulli, and he's the one who's on the same intermediate tyres as Michael is. That's putting Trulli down. He already was a lap down in 5th place. So Coulthard from Michael Schumacher. Frentzen is 70 seconds behind those two. So if anybody, they're the only two that can win this race. Frentzen 3rd, Heidfeld is 4th, going very strongly for Sauber. And 5th place, Trulli, you've just seen him there being passed by Michael. Panis 6th, Alesi 7th, Fisichella 8th. Having a better day for Benetton. There'll be some smiles for that.
And Coulthard moving on to the wet stuff down the straight then to start to cool those inters. Now they're in the zone where they really should be on slicks, but it'll cost them 28 seconds to drop in for a set of slicks, and it just is not worth it. What they've got to do now is try to maintain those intermediate tyres. It'll be a softer rubber, and with the grooves in them, you generate an awful lot more surface temperature, and both anybody out there now on the inters will be doing exactly the same thing.
Yes, these intermediate tyres have gone through an awful lot of testing, and of course we should remember, Martin, that both David Coulthard and Michael Schumacher are on the same Bridgestone tyre, so there's no tyre war going on in this battle here. All of the top 3, in fact all of the top 6, are all using the Bridgestone tyre. Now I know from talking to the Ferrari people that they did a lot of work on these tyres in Italy in testing. They've got a facility at their test track to completely soak it with hoses and sprinklers and that kind of thing, and they can do whatever they want. And they found that on a drying track these intermediate tyres will go on and on and on. We've got just 8 laps left in this race. It should be okay even if a dry line begins to completely appear. But as we just saw there, David Coulthard taking the opportunity to just cool them down, those tyres, to get onto the wet part of the track, give them a bit of what they like, which is water, and just preserve them a little bit more.
Yes, 22.9 seconds was his lead last time around, and we haven't seen a midsection time yet from Schumacher on this current lap. Over the line with a 27.5, and well, I think he's just going to be screaming away now from Michael Schumacher. Has Schumacher got any kind of problem?
And has Schumacher said second place is good enough for me? It's not really his kind of language. that, but maybe that's what he's done here today, given the circumstances. We've got just 7 laps of this Grand Prix left. But Martin, let's just talk briefly about some of the other people we haven't really mentioned so much today. There's some interesting point scorers if things finish the way they are. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, once again, he's been a point scorer in both of the first 2 races so far this year, and he's been going very, very strongly in both of them. Finished 5th in Australia and 4th in Malaysia. So once again, Jordan looking quite strong, because Jarno Trulli is in 5th place at the moment, so that'll be 2 more points for him. And Nick Heidfeld,
just as you're saying that, Frenzen's off the road. Mechanical failure then for Frentzen, our 3rd place man. That puts Heidfeld, who's passed Trulli, not seen on the cameras, but Heidfeld was up into 4th, now will be 3rd, because Trulli is on those full wets and lapping very, very slowly. So all of a sudden, from being a dead cert 3rd and 4th there for the Jordan team, it's beginning to fall apart.
Just goes to show you should never really talk about points paying positions before the race finishes. Heinz-Harald Frentzen from 3rd, then dropping out. A bitter blow for him, but Trulli up to 4th, and Heidfeld on a podium position with Sauber. Could you believe it? Ted Kravitz, what can you tell us?
James, it's a fantastic atmosphere down here at McLaren. I'm actually surprised you're allowed in this pit at all. Whenever you're in the commentary box, DC has a storming race. Anyway, there are a lot of nervously confident faces here. Coulthard's got such a great opportunity to take the fight to Schumacher in the championship. They're all willing him on down here at McLaren.
I'll bet they are.
DC then through turn 3. He's dropped his pace slightly, but still 22.8 seconds is his lead. We haven't seen much information on our screens. We've lost lots of electrics up here in the commentary box, and apologies once again for any sound or vision loss you had earlier on in this Grand Prix. I'm afraid a lot of electrical problems here at the Interlagos circuit, but no such problems so far for David Coulthard.
No, well, David Coulthard looking as though he might just shape up for his 11th career Grand Prix victory. The man who, certainly for the last 2 or 3 years, has been in the shadows of Mika Häkkinen at the McLaren team. Häkkinen has out-qualified him every race so far this year. Coulthard has raced very strongly in both of the opening 2 Grand Prix, as he has again today, and he seems to be the man who's taking the fight now to Ferrari. He's got 21 seconds over Schumacher.
This is a fight for 6th place between Jean Alesi and Fisichella in the Benetton, and it was 0.2 of a second last time around, and that's about exactly what it looks now. So don't know exactly which tyres they're on. I'll try and have a look. Alesi looks like he's on the full wet to me. Didn't get much of a look at the Benetton tucked up behind, but Jean Alesi there, I'm sure the Benetton is on the intermediate, so that'll be a good one round the outside, and Jean should have the line into the next corner, but too much traction there. Benetton move into a point-scoring position.
Who'd have thought it after the terrible time they've had so far this weekend? Both Fisichella and Jenson Button, his teammate, have struggled to even break into the top 17, let alone the point-scoring top 6 positions, and there'll be some disappointment also at Prost, as we see again just the way that Alesi ran a little bit wide, and Fisichella was able to nab that 6th place from him.
Yeah, Fisichella, I'm sure, will be on the intermediates there, because really Jean should have been able to get into that corner first from that position, but just could not find the traction.
19 races now Alesi has gone since he last scored a point. This is his 2nd season with the Prost team, and it's been pretty difficult for the last couple of years, but he was perhaps hoping he might get something there. Of course, he used to race with the Benetton team, so he'll be doubly sad about what's just happened. 5 laps to go in this race.
Yes, I stood in a group of ex-drivers last night with Markey, Blundell, Berger, JJ Leto, all sorts, standing having a good old gas about the good old days, and Jean Alesi walked up and we said, John, when are you joining us? We're forming a new club of ex-drivers. We're going to have a Masters tour soon or something like that. And John said, can I please join you tonight? I've had enough. But he will certainly be very disappointed with losing that World Championship point if that's the way it stays.
You and him could be the Statler and Waldorf of Formula One, couldn't you? Leaning out of your box, making comments about the youngsters. So this is the scrap on the track, though, between Panis and Trulli, and this is the battle for 4th place. 3 World Championship points at stake here if you can come 4th. Only 2 points available for the 5th place man. Nothing in it between them. Panis looking strong.
Yeah, Panis then... let's see if we can see this. I've got such a poor picture up here in the commentary box. I just cannot begin to see what tyres they're on. It's just all fuzzy from where we're sitting. I hope it's better for you at home, but at the moment the Jordan has the upper hand. Trulli then 4th place man Panis, And we know Panis has got a lot of straight line speed. He popped past a Jordan earlier on, and 2 Jordans early on in the race, exactly like that, down into turn 1, more straight line speed and a huge amount more confidence under braking. Panis then up into the same 4th place that he finished in Melbourne before they took it away from him for passing under the yellows. No yellow flags waving there. And look at the straight line speed advantage. Remember, these 2 cars have exactly the same engine, and if Eddie Jordan thought he was having a bad day losing Frentzen, having a BAR Honda breeze past his car will not please him at all.
David Coulthard, though, now just 4 laps away from victory, and we've hardly seen the man who's going to claim the final podium position if things stay the same. His name is Nick Heidfeld. He's 23 years old. He comes, like Heinz-Auer Frentzen, from Mönchengladbach in Germany. He was having a terrible time at Prost last year, really got his head down. He's a protege of the Mercedes and McLaren team. They farmed him out to Prost, and now they've farmed him out to Sauber. And he's running in 3rd place in this race for the Sauber team. And he's had a terrific start to this 2001 championship. 4th place in Australia. They've got very, very little experience of this racetrack, Sauber, but they come here with one driver, Heidfeld, who's got 1 year's experience, and another driver, Raikkonen, who's never been here before. In fact, has only ever done 2 Grand Prix in his life. So they've done very well to get the setup right on that car, and Heidfeld looking very strong for a podium finish as we look at Michael Schumacher passing the back marker, and that is the European Minardi of Tarso Marquez.
It's a great thing about Formula One, it's so unpredictable. I mean, Michael just totally dominated those first 2 races, and here we see Heidfeld ducking up the inside of the Minardi. I think that's just a simple replay, nothing dramatic going on there, and a good overhead shot there of Coulthard gently feeding the nose of that McLaren into turn 10 before heading down through Megullo.
So, Martin, let me ask you, we've seen an awful lot of interesting performances today. Who's your man of the match? Who's your drive of the day? What have you liked?
This is the 3rd supremely mature drive of David Coulthard, but my man of the day has got to be Montoya, I think. His 3rd ever Grand Prix. He led it with a lot of confidence and supreme driving, and he was on a 1-stopper, so I'd give it to Montoya today. But this is a great run from David Coulthard.
So Montoya, the man of the match. Coulthard looking as though he's going to be the winner of the race, and this man is going to be the hero of Switzerland. Nick Heidfeld for the Swiss Sauber team, powered of course by the Ferrari engine which won last year's World Championship. It's now a customer unit sold to Sauber and to the Prost team, and Sauber is certainly making great use of it. It's only 1 step behind the engine in Michael Schumacher's car, and it's giving them a lot of power. They've got a good chassis. Heidfeld doing a terrific job. Coulthard just a lap and a half away from victory.
Yep, 2 including this one, as you say, and I tell you what hurts at the end of these races. I mean, Coulthard, I know, is wearing a neck strap. The rain would have taken away a lot of the pain around this track with the less grip. But what hurts at the end of these races, where the track is so wet and you're hanging on even in a straight line, are your jaws and your teeth. You clench your teeth so hard, just trying to wait for the next time the car gets out of shape at 150 miles an hour or so. And but Coulthard happily on his way towards the end of this, the penultimate lap.
So we've hardly had time to draw breath since this race started about an hour and a half ago. It's been incident-packed. Rubens Barrichello's car failed on the formation lap. He ran back, got into the spare, and then had a huge accident which put him out of the race. We've had safety cars. We've had Juan Montoya leading this race for well over 20 laps before he went to make a routine pass on a back marker who let him through, and then he drove straight up the back of him, taking Montoya out of the race. Michael Schumacher took the lead. Then we had rain. Michael looked as though he was in a very strong position. Coulthard didn't make the early stop for the wet tyres. It looked like it had cost him the race win, but then Michael made 2 very big mistakes on a wet track. Coulthard dived past him into turn 1 to take the lead. It's been a feisty, fighting drive from the young man from Twineholme in Scotland. He's got about 1.5 miles to 2 miles left to go. He comes into Ferradura corner for the last time. And that's the right-hander, 115 miles an hour, 3rd gear. All the thoughts now will be going through his head about his 11th Grand Prix victory, his first for 10 races.
Well, normally Murray might say, hey, he could almost get out and push it home, but he certainly will not be able to do that at this racetrack. It's a massively steep hill. It doesn't look like it on your TV pictures as they come up to the end of the lap, but Coulthard, the engine sounds sweet enough, doesn't it? And no gear shift problems, nothing hanging off it. All the time in the world, he can just cruise, just like it's a cruisy outlap on the first morning of testing. Just pay attention, don't make any silly mistakes, and David Coulthard surely now has this Grand Prix in his pocket. Coulthard then is going to take the 10 points. A brilliant drive.
David Coulthard then comes across the start-finish line and wins the Brazilian Grand Prix. His first victory in Brazil, his first win for 10 Grand Prix, and second place will be Michael Schumacher, who led this race and who thought probably he had it in the bag, but he didn't. Nick Heidfeld does indeed finish on the podium for Sauber. It's been an extraordinary afternoon here. We're waiting for Olivier Panis, who's going to be fourth for British American Racing, ahead of Jarno Trulli, who will be fifth for Jordan, and Fisichella will get the final point for the Benetton team, which will give them an awful lot to smile about after a terrible, terrible first 2 Grand Prix. But the winner of this race, and look how happy he is, David Coulthard of Great Britain wins the Brazilian Grand Prix.
Strong run then from young Heidfeld in third place there, so his first ever Grand Prix podium, and well deserved too. That was tricky conditions today.
Yes, very difficult driving conditions indeed. All of these men deserve a medal. And Panis finishing fourth there. You just saw going through your screens also Trulli waiting for Fisichella. He's a lap down. There he is crossing the line now. Giancarlo Fisichella, teammate to Jenson Button, of course, who has had a very trying time. Jenson finishes in 10th place though, and Ted is down there with Ron Dennis.
Ron Dennis, congratulations, you've finally done it. You've broken the Ferrari stranglehold on Formula One.
What stranglehold? I don't know what you're talking about.
6 races in a row, Ron, you've done it. Brilliant job.
Winning races is what we're here to do, you know, we're just doing our job.
And a fantastic drive from Coulthard. A word for you, Scott.
Yeah, great job. It was good, very good.
Congratulations, Ron, brilliant job.
Well, I've been down there many times over the last few years at the end of Grand Prix that have been won by McLaren, and I've seen the tears, would you believe it, in the eyes of Ron Dennis, the boss of that team. He's a man of steel, but he's got a heart, a very soft heart whenever there's a win. David Coulthard then comes in, the winner of this Brazilian Grand Prix.
Brilliant drive, David. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, man. There's the boys here.
Happy birthday, Stack!
Oops, sorry.
Yeah. Quite good.
There's a friend. Take my helmet.
Lush, rich top.
That was you. What's the slow? What's the slow? On the wet. The problem. Huh? The car was handling like a piece of shit. I thought they mounted the tires wrong. Anyway. Get a picture.
Welcome to David Coulthard. The trophy presented to him by Mrs. Marcos Luisi, Mayor of the City of São Paulo. To the winning constructor, represented by team principal Ron Dennis, S. McLaren Mercedes, the trophy presented by Mr. Gilson Cortes, Managing Director of Philip Morris Brazil. Mrs. Luisi also presents the trophy to Michael Schumacher, second. Welcome to the roster of Nick. The trophy presented by Mr. Paolo Scaglioni, President of the CBA.
Presidente da Confederação Brasileira de Automobilismo, Paulo Scaglioni, entrega o troféu a Nick Heidfeld, terceiro colocado.
Ladies and gentlemen, the champagne!
Schumacher second, and Nick Heidfeld a first visit to this top three conference in third place. David, saw you jigging around on the podium there. It must have meant an awful lot for you, this win, but talk me through the move you pulled on Michael going into that first corner.
Well, it was incredibly difficult conditions when we were in all that traffic. And to be honest, you couldn't see anything of the car in front, so you had to put a great deal of trust in the other drivers to still keep it flat. I think Michael must have lifted through the left-hand kink onto the straight, and then it was quite straightforward to just slipstream past him. And you know, we'd decided that this time, with the changeable weather, we'd compromise the setup a little bit for the dry to try and make sure I was in good shape for the damp. And although it was a bit of a struggle to stay with them at the beginning of the race, once it was damp, the car was working very well. So I have to say a big thank you to the team.
Now, in the early half of the race, before you made the move on Michael, you were running third behind Juan Pablo Montoya and Michael and stuck in behind them. What were your tactics going to be at that stage? Did you know rain was coming?
Praying for the rain, because I knew that I'd made some changes to the car with my engineer to help the car for the wet conditions. And, you know, we were getting reports of increasing percentage chance of rain. And I just didn't want to be the one who got caught out again in those conditions. I didn't want to be the first to pit. Waited for Michael to do that, but once I was out, I was always able to get past him quite easily. And, you know, I think my engineer, Phil and Mark and the whole guys did a good job in setting up the car. So it's very satisfying to win this race. I know that maybe slightly fortunate because Montoya was going very strong, but I still think in the wet we would have been in great shape.
Well, congratulations, David. Michael, could you talk me through the move just after the restart when the safety car came in after the end of lap 2, when Juan Pablo Montoya made a move on you?
Pretty easy. I mean, he has quite a lot of straight line speed in comparison to us. The problem here is that you have a very long straight from the last corner to start and finish line, so you have to give a lot of time for the safety car to go up front before you can really start to push, and that means you only have this last corner and the guy is able to stay very close to you from there, and it's very easy then to take the slipstream and go in the first corner. Although I thought I was in front enough to keep in front, but then he must have braked very late, and he just got it right. I mean, he pushed me wide in the exit, which is pretty normal racing. We touched a bit, but no problem with that. And then I thought I could have another run at him at a later stage, but I never got really in that position.
Later in the race, when the rain had come, you went out on intermediates, as you did in rather different circumstances in Malaysia last time out. But then it became clear that you weren't able to make any gains on David. Did it ever cross your mind to take the gamble and come in and fit dry tyres again, because you had Heinz-Harald Frentzen was an awfully long way behind you in that stage?
No, there was no way to go with dry tyres. It was far too wet.
OK, Michael, thank you very much. Nick Heidfeld, congratulations, your first visit, third place for Sauber, an excellent performance. You were very, very fast in the wet, getting past Jarno Trulli. Was this because you'd guessed before the race that it was going to rain?
No, we went for normal dry setup, but I think Jarno was on wet tyres. I'm not sure, but when I followed him, it looked like he was on wet tyres. Because early on, when it was wet, he passed me, and later on, I was quicker.
Then Heinz-Harald Frentzen retired ahead of you, and you were up to third place. What does it mean to be up on the podium for the first time?
I mean, it's incredible for me, and I'm really happy for all the team who put a lot of effort in it. And to be honest, I think I didn't realize right now, because for me now to be on the podium is really amazing.